Hey guys, welcome back. It's another top five. And since I was able to do this with Vin Diesel, I should have no problem doing this one, right? It's Keanu Reeves time. Whoa. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, so click that subscribe button so you can stay informed on all the content that I produce on a daily basis. Brilliant stuff like this that you just cannot live without. I feel you. I can feel that that's what you need in your life. That's what's been missing. So, I just saw John Wick Chapter 4, and I added that to the long list of Keanu Reeves films that I've seen, and I tried to structure a top five, but I also kind of have seen 36 of his films. And it's Keanu, so you get kind of mixed up with what is iconic and what is actually good. And I tried to actually come up with a list that represented the best of Keanu's performances. Not necessarily the ones that he'll be known for going on down the line, but the ones where he's actually good in. And I know that shocks people because a lot of people don't think this guy can act. And that's kind of just a thing that we set up at the very beginning by putting him in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So, yeah, playing Ted Logan just was not going to make people convinced that this dude had acting talent. So, and then he kind of got stuck in that kind of role for a little while. It took him a while. I don't think playing a surfer cop in Point Break was really that far away from being Ted. He just kind of grew up. So, yeah, it took him a while to kind of break away from it. I haven't seen all of his roles. I've heard he's actually pretty good in Bram Stoker's Dracula. I just haven't seen it. Some other really smaller films. He's in some pretty indie films that I just never felt the need to see. Like Feeling Minnesota. All right. So yeah, there's some stuff I haven't seen, but I challenge anybody to have seen all of the films by all of the actors. Anyway. So this list is going to be a little weird because, like I said, I wanted to represent all of him across different genres. All right, so coming up first on the list is romantic Keanu at number 5. And Keanu he's tried to swoon his way into films before. He's tried to use his good looks and bat his eyes and, hey, I love you. Just have just sort of this mystique about himself, and he's a pretty person, and I think women like him. But he does actually have a good performance here, and it's in the mid-90s film A Walk in the Clouds, where he co-stars opposite Anthony Quinn, who I think probably brought out the best in Keanu in that film. I don't think critics necessarily look back favorably on this film, but it's really not bad. He plays a guy who, like a kind of a roamer. He's kind of roaming, and he gets picked up by a lady who needs to be able to take a man back to her father and say, we're engaged. I didn't make poor life choices. So he agrees to go back and be that guy. And then after he's been introduced to them, he's supposed to leave so that way at least they think of somebody when they think of, oh, who's the father of my baby? And I thought he did a nice job in this film. I think it's a really underappreciated work of his, and he does a nice job opposite Anthony Quinn. It's sort of a subdued work to talk about, because Quinn is he's the Titan here, so I think maybe that's why people don't talk about Reeves being in the film. but he's sympathetic where he needs to be. He's romantic where he needs to be, and the film kind of moves in the direction that you think it's going to, and it's nice to see him maneuver this. It's better than some of his other films where it just gets a little too sappy and a little too dark. Sweet November, maybe. All right, so that's number 5. That's romantic Keanu has been represented. Coming up at number 4, we're going to go with comedic Keanu. So, comedic Keanu pops up every once in a while, actually sometimes as himself, in maybe a film called Keanu. But I didn't pick that film. I actually think if this was more like personal preference, because I love the film so much, I might try to slide him in with Something's Gotta Give here, because that's easily one of my favorite films of all time. But he doesn't really do much there. It also kind of falls under the romance, because all he has to do is kind of show up and be like, "What's up? I'm a new doctor, and I think you're beautiful." You know, I mean, he just, like, it's just really easy for him to just kind of go into that role. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. "Oh my God, I love your work. I'm obsessed with you, and I'm a doctor, and I'm younger than you. Can we go out?" You know, I mean, it's just like, there's nothing to that role. So, and that's not the reason why people watch Something's Gotta Give. I don't think anybody watched it. They were like, I don't know about this Jack Nicholson, Diane Keaton film. Oh, but Keanu's in it. You know. So, I ended up picking The Replacements. I think this is a really underrated film. It's him opposite Gene Hackman. It's that weird comedic football comedy where they need a bunch of random people to play football. It's kind of interesting to be talking about The Replacements in the middle of a SAG after a WGA strike. But yeah, he plays somebody who actually has potential and gets a sort of that once-in-a-lifetime shot. There's something about those once-in-a-lifetime shots that I think bring out good performances in people. Invincible is definitely a better performance of Mark Wahlberg's. So here I think you get that in Keanu. And he seems to understand the humor behind it. And he's also not required to be the humorous point in the film, which we'll talk about in a minute, where he is actually kind of a humorous point in the film, but it falls under a different category. I love this film. I thought he was a great lead in it, and I miss Gene Hackman. I don't know why he stopped acting, but he stopped acting way too... He's still alive. Dude could have gone at least a few more years. He didn't need to be writing those books nobody's reading. So, have you read a Gene Hackman history book? Exactly. No one has. Anyway. All right, so moving on, third on the list, we're going to talk about animated Keanu, because actually this is a thing. This is like a category for Keanu. He's been animated a few times. And most recently, I absolutely adored him. It was something I didn't know that I needed in my life, was him as Batman in DC League of Super Pets. I did not know that was something that I wanted, needed, or would have ever enjoyed until somebody forced me to watch it. Nobody forced me to watch the movie, but I mean, like, him being in that, you know, it's like, oh, God, gotta listen to Keanu do Batman, what weird casting. And then you're like, oh my God, this is hilarious and brilliant. He's so good in Batman, reading the darkest lines. I know we're never going to get a Keanu Batman movie. Even if it was just the animated version of him, I would be so happy. Even if they just get him into one of those, you know, straight-to-video DC Batman films they keep releasing, I would so watch it. I would be there for in like a second. I'd be like, oh my God, they're still making this character. It's like a very different Batman, and I loved it. It's perfect. But that's not the performance I picked for this, because I don't think that is his best performance. It's kind of cheating, but I picked A Scanner Darkly. It is rotoscope, so there is actually a performance here. It's not just voice acting. But Yeah, I think this is definitely one of his stronger films, and I think fans of A Scanner Darkly would probably argue that. I think this is probably not a surprising pick. I think those who are familiar with his body of work thought Scanner Darkly might show up. Maybe not the first two. You might have been a little bit more surprised by those, but I think by the time we get to Scanner Darkly, if you're a Keanu fan and you've seen as many films as I have, I don't think this is not a swing for the fences shot. So the film is weird. It's beautiful. It's rotoscoped. I love rotoscoping. I miss it now that I'm blind. I can't. The just the style. There's nothing really to sort of help tell blind people just how brilliant rotoscoping looks when it's used appropriately and used well. Like it isn't A Scanner Darkly where it's mixed with fantastical elements. It allows you to tell a story and then also add in animation when you want to so that it looks, um, uh, you know, it's like a blend. It looks so realistic, but then at times it's not. It's not realistic at all. And it's great. So that's it. Number 2 on my list. Is going to upset people. This is the War of Action Keanu. Um, yeah. Action Keanu is pretty much his entire career. Action Keanu is also not necessarily the most impressive. Early Action Keanu gave us films like Speed and Point Break, which are like classic for his resume, absolutely. But I'm not doing the 5 most classic films of Keanu's career. And there really isn't much to those performances. And especially considering what he does later on in life, I don't think there's much. So later on in The Matrix, he started messing around with actually learning his own fight choreography and doing his own stunt work and actually having to learn different fighting styles in order to perform them in The Matrix. However, I don't think The Matrix necessarily has the kind of gravitas in the role. It's kind of it's very much a visual effects oriented film that's driven by a plot. His emotional connection to Trinity is really the only thing that you could pull out of and say this is an actual performance within the context of the film. So, believe it or not, guys, I didn't pick Neo. It's like I know it's iconic. I'm not picking Neo. I think later on when he continues to expand his work and he's in films like Man of Tai Chi and 47 Ronin, where he also continued to still do his own stunt work and learn how to wield a sword for 47 Ronin, convincingly. I mean, there's so much. He really does put himself into the work, which is why I led all the way up to the film I actually did pick, which is, in fact, John Wick. Yeah, he's actually doing all that hand-to-hand combat, and he has bled for this role, and the role has emotional grounding in the first film. It kind of goes a little awry with the sequels. It's reined back in the fourth film when we find ourselves finally sort of coming a full circle moment. But it's that first film, when he's mourning the loss of his wife, when he is seeing what tragedy has befallen his life, this poor dog, the dog that launched 1,000 ships, and the snap in him to getting the revenge back, and it's his commitment to his work here that I think is fully represented in the role of John Wick. Just everything that not only does he get to use gun fu, as some people call it, but yeah, he goes through and does a lot of his own stunt work, and it's kind of 4 films deep of doing stunt work. Plus, I think just the emotional core of the film, the revenge plot, works more than the save the world plot of Matrix, which is what Matrix is, or say Trinity, depending on which film you're watching. So, I picked John Wick. but that's only number two. Normally I give my honorable mentions here, but I've kind of been giving my honorable mentions along the way. The only one that I would say that didn't really fit in anywhere, because he doesn't really have enough in the genre that I've seen. The only other film would be like Dracula, which I admitted I haven't seen, would be like a horror genre, and I guess I'll give honorable mention to Knock Knock. I think he's good in Knock Knock. It's an interesting performance for him, but I just didn't feel compelled enough to put it on the list. So what do I think is his best performance? And it represents the drama Keanu, which is weird because most people wouldn't put drama Keanu in top. However, I actually think he's really good in To the Bone. If you haven't seen this is a Netflix eating disorder drama. It's very dark, and he plays a therapist who is sort of helping these people through their various disorders. And it's not a big role. It's not a flashy role. It's not a showy role. It's a role that just kind of requires him to be a little bit like a guru, a little bit just like somebody who says wisdom when you need him to. And I think it's his best work of his career. That's why I put it on at the top. I think it gets to the point. He's 58 now. That film's not that old. I think he finally is. He's getting all of the wisdom that he needs to be able to start turning in better performances. He's lived a life. Anybody who's familiar with Keanu's personal life and all of the loss that he's suffered along the way, and just how nice of a guy he is, can understand that probably he's going to be one of those things that gets better with age. And I still think Keanu's best performance is yet to come, as he finds it harder and harder to stay in action films like John Wick. He's going to end up in another drama, I'm sure, and I think that will end up really being the performance that puts him over the top. But if you haven't seen To the Bone, I recommend seeing it. So anyway, that's the list, guys. Just recapping in case you got lost along the way. Number 5 is A Walk in the Clouds. Number 4 is The Replacements. Number 3 is The Scanner Darkly. Number 2 is John Wick. And number 1 is To the Bone. Let me know what your top 5 is and how angry you are that Neo is not on this list. Doesn't mean I don't love The Matrix. I do love The Matrix. I just trying to represent all of Keanu. I've seen 36 titles, and I'd be interested to see how many of Keanu you guys have seen. I didn't want to put Bill and Ted because I actually think Bill and Ted is absolutely the reason why nobody thinks Keanu Reeves can act. I think it's one of those roles where it started his career in a good way because it was a hit, so he got more offers, but also in a bad way because everybody thought that was all he could do. Kind of like if we found out Megan Fox later on down the line is a really good actress. Some films people start off in the wrong role, and then you assume this is all they can do. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining me with Keanu here, and I will do another one of these and share it with you. So that's why you've subscribed. Until then, I will see you guys on the other side.